Guys. And we are live for another episode of The Quit List. We appreciate you guys coming back. You guys are particularly amazing. What we like you to do at the moment is share. Go ahead and share this with your friends. I promise you, you will not be letting them down. In fact, they will thank you for it. So we'll give you 2 seconds to do that. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you tuning in to another episode of The Quit List. I'm Dr. Stan, the Quit Doctor. Today on the program, I'm joined by my guest, Dr. Anila Ricks-Court. Dr. Anila is a medical doctor down there in El Paso, Texas. Dr. Anila, welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much.
Jeremiah Kamara is back with us. Jeremiah is a filmmaker and an author. Jeremiah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
We are also joined by our good friend, Dr. Gerard McClendon. Dr. McClendon is a social scientist and a professor over there at the good old CSU, Chicago State University. Dr. McClendon, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Issue number 1 on the Quit List, interracial dating. Wealthy Black men, in particular celebrities and athletes, have always dated white women. For example, Morgan Freeman, John Legend, Eddie Murphy, Terry Crews, Cuba Gooding Jr., Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley. The list goes on in terms of Black men who are very wealthy that marry white women. Dr. McClendon, this conversation is not about judging their choice of who they fall in love with or who they marry. Actually, the conversation is more about race relations in this country and where we have fallen or sunken to in terms of race. So the question is it just about love, or is there something else going on from a sociological perspective in terms of why wealthy men choose white women?
I think for one, it has to do with proximity. This isn't to say that Black women aren't in the locale and proximity of Black men who are wealthy or powerful. It's to say that there may be more options for these particular Black men to quote unquote date outside their race or other cultures when they get to a certain echelon of income. Here's the thing though, race is a cultural construct. It's a geopolitical construct. It really has nothing to do with biology whatsoever. So it's cultural and it's political. How are we to break down the genotype or phenotype of an individual? Are we to ask for someone's DNA before we start to date them? Do you have the NV38? Haplogroup phenotype. If you don't, I don't want to marry you. So I think this has more to do with geopoliticism, and it has more to do with some Black men's choice of thinking that a white woman or a woman who's a non-Black woman is some sort of a prize. This is mental.
Yeah, Dr. Anila, what do you think about that? Do you think that it is white Black men are looking at these women as a quote prize or trophy, or do you think it's just proximity and love in the air?
The way you drew out love was absolutely wrong. So I have to agree with Dr. McClendon, my established colleague. Yeah, so this is the thing. So let me say before I give you my answer, I'm going to out myself because I can't speak about Black men dating white women and why they marry them, other than it would make sense if you have options. We know that, at least from the Black women's perspective, for the longest time, we thought that it was because it was something that was forbidden. So that because it was forbidden, it made it all that more attractive. But I will tell you, because I'm coming out of the box, in full disclosure, I have been married to a white dude for 24 years. That's who Jesus sent me. I love Black men. I think they're awesome. But the one that Jesus sent me ain't got a bit more color. He is blue in the wintertime and in the summertime. And it's just how it is. I prayed before I married him. I was with him for 5.5 years. My father thought it's because I didn't like Black men. I didn't like him. Uncle was like, "You sure you want to do this?" Literally 2 days before I got married, I still prayed on it. So I honestly believe that love is love. It really is. From my perspective, love is love. Now, are there social and cultural things that factor into that? For sure. Are there some people who fetishize what it's like to be with somebody from a different race? For sure. Is it something that the if you have to have a strong sense of character and a strong sense of self in order to be able to do it and play it off. And when we talk about marriages, so outside of dating, if you are a Black dude married to a white chick, you are 2 times more likely to get divorced than if you were a white chick married to a white dude. But on the flip side, if you're a Black chick married to a white dude, you are 44% less to have a divorce than white people married to white people. I'm just telling you, it may very well be. Maybe they found love in a place they weren't looking for. I know I sure found it in a place I wasn't looking for. So thank you for allowing me to out myself and give you my perspective on stuff. I think love is love.
Okay, now you're still married to this person right now, correct?
Oh, yes. We have been together for 29 years, married for 24, and got 3 kids. Yes.
Okay, so as we continue this conversation, I know this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. I hope we don't want you to feel offended by anything that we say in this particular discussion. I know I don't have to say that, but I'm saying it anyway. Jeremiah, what do you think about this idea that Black men are choosing white women? And I do want to get back to the notion that Black women choose white men, because there are several examples of that too. Serena Williams, what's the Tia or Tamar, one of the Tomorrow twins, Alfre Woodard, Zoe Saldana. So these people do choose someone outside the race. Now, given the state of race relations right now, is there a heightened level of sensitivity to these issues? I'm talking to Jeremiah Kamara.
Well, I couldn't hear Dr. McClendon for some reason. That's why I kept doing this. So whatever he said, I didn't hear it. I would like to have heard his response. But, those people are too rich to be affected by the stigma. And so when you have people with money that don't have money, they're going to be stigmatized a lot more. But there was an old Apple Jacks commercial that came out several years ago, and the guy was eating a bowl of Apple Jacks, and he said, "Man, why do you like these Apple Jacks?" And he said, "I just do." I mean, you like what you like. You're attracted to who you're attracted to. And as far as I'm concerned, I see more interracial relationships now than I've ever seen. Black women with white men and vice versa. But I think that in the end, sex will always rule. I mean, sexual attraction. There are people who have a stigma that are attracted to big women, but they won't admit it. And I think that when you are true to yourself and there's no stigma attached, you will see a lot of ethnicity, differences of ethnicity involved when it comes to relationships. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. But I don't think that anyone's in a position to regulate who someone else goes with, because I certainly don't have a replacement for them. You like who you like, and you're going to be attracted to what you're attracted to. Sex is the boss in the long run. Sex is always going to win, and let me add this point. You got people that are in Ethiopia. I heard this guy ask me a question about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, "Man, why do those people who have these flies in their eyes and they're starving, why do they keep having babies?" That was a real dumb question, because that's almost like an involuntary movement. Sex is so separate from being hungry. When you are in the mood and you like what you like, you're going to do it, and that's the boss that takes control. So I'm not in any position to tell someone who they should or shouldn't date. That is definitely a personal choice.
One thing that Jeremiah just said, he said that one of the issues or the things surrounding this particular topic is the idea that he sees a lot more interracial couples. Does that signify that we are in a better position in terms of race relations? Dr. McClendon, what do you think of that?
It doesn't necessarily signify that we're better, period. It just means that we are to a level of acceptance where people can actually love each other openly. In places like New York City and in LA, this has always, for the most part, been prevalent, but in some of the rural areas and some of the other larger cities, you just haven't seen it as much. People need to be strong enough to say, "Hey, I like this person. I'm going to date this person. We like each other. We're thinking about starting a family, raising some children, and keeping it moving." As Jeremiah said, you like who you like, keep it moving. What I meant about proximity, though, is that once you get to a certain income, you may have choices that you didn't have when the income was limited. And that isn't always just angled at race, but sometimes it's angled at class. So there may be a certain person that never would consider you. I mean, let's stay within race. Would Beyonce really be with Jay-Z, or would Jay-Z really be with Beyonce if neither of them had money, or if only one had money, fame, and success? So that's a racial example where they probably wouldn't be together if they were just average, normal people. Let's keep it real.
There's a photo on social media with this family. The family consists of the husband, who was black, the wife was white, and then there's a little kid. It was a little boy, and the little boy was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. They all had on t-shirts. The wife had a t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter. The husband has a t-shirt that says White Lives Matter. The kid has a t-shirt that says All Lives Matter. Dr. Anilu, do you believe that as an interracial, a person in an interracial relationship, are you always guarded in that relationship? And I say that because I sense that the black man had to have a shirt that says White Lives Matter because he has to acknowledge his wife who's white. The white woman has to have a shirt that says Black Lives Matter because she has to acknowledge her husband's and be sensitive to his plight because he's black. And then, of course, the kid has both. So he's got to say All Lives Matter because he has to be sensitive to both sides. So what do you think, Dr. Anila? Is it a situation here where you are always guarded in that type of relationships?
I think for several years I was, in all honesty, as I mentioned to you, I outed myself not too long ago. And that's been actually within the last year, probably, I have been more open to being more vulnerable about who my spouse is and who my children are. I think that racism, we know it exists. If you look for it, you probably see it a little bit more so than if you don't. And these days, everybody sees it because it's everywhere. The same stuff we've known for years now, everybody knows. But their situation may be different because he's married to a white chick. I don't know. Like, my husband understands that racism is real. He's seen it over the last 24 years of us being married, 29 years of us being together. He's seen it firsthand. Obviously, white privilege is real. And what I experience as a black person is different than what he experienced as a white dude married to a black chick, for sure. And so if that works for them, that's fine. My children understand that they are seen as black people. My children acknowledge their father as well as me from the standpoint of being, sentient human beings. I don't try to make them just black or just white or anything because they're not that, but they understand that they're seen as black. And so you need to carry yourself accordingly. It's as simple as that. I think maybe with the situation with the white lady and the black husband and the child, maybe they got to say all lives matter. At our house, Black Lives Matter, period, dot. We understand this. So. And yes, all lives are important, but the issue when you say all lives matter is it takes away the import behind the fact that Black lives haven't mattered for a long time, since the construction of our country and being able to use us as slaves and justify using us as slaves, which is why you got the all lives matter thing. But come on now. Everybody ain't dying like we dying, which is why Black Lives Matter and all lives is a nice thing that you say, but that's like that Blue Lives Matter thing that you throw inside there too. Yes, police officers are lovely when they're not killing you, and I'm not saying that they all do, but as a general rule from experiences I've had when I was a teenager, they scared the shit out of me. The absolute shit. You get stopped and you want to make sure that all your stuff is close by and you ain't got to search for things, or maybe that as a physician, maybe if I show you my badge, that might buy me some safety, but I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that her situation is not my situation. Black lives do matter.
Yes.
Terrence Howard, we all know Terrence Howard he's a very great actor, and he is married to an Asian woman, I think it is. And he said that he had been getting some flack, some backlash from the media, and he called it racist. Is that racist to give him backlash on the issue, Dr. Anila? What do you think about that?
I agree with Dr. McClendon. You like who you like. Whether you like who somebody marries or not, that's on you. The reality is, in dealing with the stigma that comes with being married to the man that I married years and years ago, I have to figure out how thick I'm going to let my skin be. You having an issue with who I'm married to, that's your issue. That ain't my issue at all. You have an issue with my children is not my issue till you make it my issue, like where you threaten bodily harm from my children or to my being or to my spouse. But opinions are like booty holes. Everybody got one, and everybody's entitled to have whatever they want to have about whatever.
Yeah, Sade and Bob Marley had white parents, so I'm just gonna throw them out with the bathwater. As great as they are as artists, I'm gonna throw them out the bathwater and say they're not black because they got a white parent. Halle Berry, really? Dave Chappelle has an Asian wife. I'm gonna say Dave is less black because he has an Asian wife. Nonsense. You love who you love.
And then
okay, it's time to hit it or quit it on issue number 1. The question is this: given the state of race relations in this country, should black people be forced to choose a side? Hit it means yes, quit it means no. Should black people be forced to choose a side? Dr. Anila, hit it or quit it?
I say no. From what standpoint? What are we choosing sides over? Like whether or not I'm dating somebody who's outside my race? Like, have you done your ancestry.com? Anybody who lives in this country who is an American descendant of a slave, all you people got some white in you. The question is how much white you got. So while we're talking about race and we're talking about it as a social construct, Blackness is a cultural thing and it's a sense of identity. But I had an interesting conversation with a dude from Africa who was telling me, oh, I'm Yoruba, I'm this. And the trick is, in Africa, they don't see themselves as black. They see whatever ethnic group they come from, and that's how they define themselves. Blackness is a uniquely American thing. So no is my answer.
Jeremiah, hit it or quit it?
I say quit it. There are hundreds of millions of people in this country. And for us to be preoccupied with who is dating whom, and you got hundreds of millions of people, that is a gross misuse of time.
Exactly.
And so I just know you can't regulate, you can't legislate how a person feels about another person. You can't legislate that. So I say definitely quit it.
Dr.
And I will say this, that there are reinforcing agents out here in television that have painted the white woman as being the quintessential essence of beauty. I have a magazine, one says beauty, another one says black beauty. So it shows that there is a difference. This was in Walgreens. So that's recognized. They're the default of beauty. But when it comes to the individual, that is strictly their choice and they can do whatever they want to do. I have my home and, to deal with. I don't have the time to worry about who's dating who. I really don't.
Dr. McClendon, hit it or quit it?
I can't hear Dr. McClendon. I don't know if it's on your end, Dr. Stanley, but I would love to hear his comments. I just can't hear anything that he's saying.
So
okay, our technician might be able to check that out. And if he can fix it, he will. Dr. McClendon, go ahead.
You gotta quit it. Most people who criticize people's relationships and who they date and whether you should be with a certain race or a certain person, most of their relationships are horrible anyway. So mind your own business. I say quit it. Love who you want to love. Stay out of my business.
Issue number 2 on the quit list: reopening schools. The IHSA, that's the Illinois High School Association. This just happened just a couple of days ago. They had issued some guidelines on returning to school and in particular sports in the schools. The guidelines include a ban on certain sports. A group of parents has now filed a class action lawsuit. They said they want their kids to be back in school. They want their kids to be playing sports. One guy said that his son, who plays basketball, he said he wanted to make sure he's back in sports immediately. He said it is hurting his chances of getting a scholarship. So the question here is going to be, should students be back in school given the state of the pandemic? Jeremiah, what do you think about that? Now, I know that the pandemic is still out there, is still alive and well. I know you have some issues with that. What do you think about the idea that kids ought to be back in school immediately?
I'm just glad I don't have children. I've had grandchildren to deal with. I'm loving the fact that the traffic is thinner because they're not in school. But listen, man, that's up to the parents. Listen, first of all, if the children do go to school, and I'm talking about young children, children in grade school or whatever, you can forget about them wearing a mask all day because they're just not going to do it. Those masks are not fitting. They're small. They're just not cognizant of that. So what would be the issue? Do I want my child to go to school and be able to wear a mask? Because you can forget that, because they're not going to do it. And that can't be, you're not going to regulate that. You can't enforce that. Children are just not going to do that. So it's up to the parent. Maybe the parent needs, time to work or to do what they do. They need a babysitter, but the parents should maybe vote for that or whatever. But I don't know in terms of the epidemic that it's really relevant, because a child is not going to wear a mask for 7-8 hours a day. You can pretty much forget it. It's not going to happen.
So from a medical perspective, Dr. Neela, what do you think about that? Do you think children ought to be back in school right now?
I think, just like Jeremiah said, it is a parent's perspective. I will tell you that personally, my children are not in school. I take care of patients who have COVID. This past weekend, I took care of a pregnant lady who had COVID. On the same day that I worked, someone died in the ICU with COVID. And as I came down through the basement, I passed their body on the way to the morgue. I think the reality with COVID is, if it's not your reality, it doesn't seem like it is a reality. There's still people, particularly up in El Paso, walking, going about their daily lives, not wearing masks, not understanding the gravity of the situation. I think that the reality is, in some cases, privilege is everything. I can afford not to send my children to school and they can educate from home because we got all access and we got computers, and that's not an issue. A lot of people don't have that as an option. And even if you kept your child out and you got to work, maybe you don't have internet access at home. So I think it is really a parental related thing. Now, do I think playing sports is a BS related thing so that you can cough in my face and your child can get COVID, when there have been 624,000 cases of COVID in children since the pandemic started in this country? To each their own. You can parent however you want to, but my choice, for me and mine, they will be in the house until such time as the second wave comes and we understand what it does. And even when you look at the numbers, they're looking at children between the ages of 5 and 17. 5 and 11 is one group, 12 and 17 is the other group. Your brain isn't finished doing what it's doing from the neural connection standpoint till about 6. So what's happening to them babies that are exposed to a virus? And we know that virus exposures change how your neurons interact and what it is they do. Like pregnant chicks who get flu, you got an increased likelihood of having a child who's got schizophrenia later on. So I think we just don't know enough, and we assuming because children aren't intubated or hospitalized to the same extent that the grown folks are, that it doesn't affect them. I'm not willing to take the chance with my children. Different for different folks.
Mm-hmm. Dr. McClendon, we know that kids are playing video games. They have screen time almost all day long, every day. Is that actually an advantage for them? I mean, are they suffering? Are they harmed? Because some parents feel that because the kids are doing virtual school, they're not in the classroom, they have to look at a computer all day, that's somehow a disadvantage. Do you think that could actually be an advantage to this generation of children?
Here's the thing. All virtual isn't created equal. I mean, if you're in a school system that's wealthy, it's probably going to be a little bit easier. But I say keep the children out of school until the pandemic, not epidemic. This is not an epidemic. This isn't a common cold that you get rid of in 3 to 5 days. This is a pandemic. The United States is not taking this seriously enough. Sure, children can learn that are computer savvy. Sure, children can learn that can grasp the state standards enough and log on time and navigate the technology to the point where they can turn assignments and upload on time. That's fine and dandy, but this is about health. Also, children should not be in school because children are super spreaders. Whether they contract the disease or not, they can spread it to others who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. That's problematic as well. There's no timetable on this. If it's next spring, fine. If it's next fall, fine. Summer, fine. We got to wait till this pandemic is in check. Keep wearing masks, keep learning from home, and keep it moving. You know, I mean, the United States claims this exceptionalism. Be exceptional and wear a mask. Be exceptional and quarantine. Be exceptional and teach your children at home. We still have these things called books. So we don't always have to rely on technology. You know, reading is fundamental.
Hey, Jeremiah, what do you think about the idea that kids have been school is too long anyway? That's one of my problems. with public school system. Kids go to school all day. Then kids actually get up in the morning. They leave their house with their parents who are on their way to work. 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. They get to school. They're there all day, 3:15 or whatever time they get out. They get on the bus. They get back home. When they get home, now they're sitting there doing homework from the time they eat dinner until after, whatever, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock. I have 3 kids, and we were constantly doing homework. We were constantly working with our kids the entire day until it's time for them to go to bed. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that was more harmful than, like, right now, the kids are able to get more sleep. They're able to sleep later during the mornings. They're able to get more free time during the day. What do you think of that argument?
Well, I say not only is school too long in terms of the hours of the day, but in terms of the time from 5 years old all the way up into 18 years old. And you get out of school, you don't know the difference between a debit and a credit. You don't know a landlord-tenant agreement. You don't know anything about mortgages or how to amortize a mortgage or taxes or insurance, gap insurance, whole insurance, the things that you're going to be encountered with in life once you get out. You don't know these things. So to go to school from kindergarten all the way up to 12, from 5 years old to you're 18 is ridiculous. So you see the new trend now. 1 out of every 6 millennial has $100,000. The name of the game is really to make some money when you get out. And I was told years ago that sometimes the best education is the one that you give yourself. And so these young people are giving themselves the education. I should not have to go and learn about why King Henry VIII developed the venereal disease. I don't care. I asked a question when I was 15 years old, why am I learning this and what is it going to do for me? So I think school is too long. I think education reform is the main thing. We're not learning what we should be learning to deal with the stuff that we're going to encounter once we get out of school.
Okay, sounds like you're talking about the curriculum that the schools actually study, and I think you got a point there. How about that, Dr. McClendon?
Yeah, I mean, it's about LOBOHWA, learning objective, behavioral objective, homework, and the assessment. It doesn't take 6 hours to learn something. All I need to know is that, does the child have a learning objective? Once they master the learning objective, does their behavior change? The behavioral objective, does the behavior change because they've learned something? I can reinforce this through homework, and then I assess the child. If I'm teaching a child a lesson and the child has learned that lesson and can show a behavioral change, I don't need to teach the child that anymore. I can move on to the next lesson. And so I think this may be a time period in the United States where, as Jeremiah just said, it's time to reform this.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. I think we should vote for Dr. Gerard McClendon, PhD, as the new Secretary of Education in the United States. Dr. Anila, what do you think about the fact that that when the kids do go to school, that they are able to, there's other mental challenges. In other words, there's other benefits of them actually physically being in the classroom. Do you see any health problems associated with them? And I'm talking physical problems associated with the kids not being in the classroom. And you've got like 30 seconds to answer this because we're out of time.
Sure. Physical activity is everything. I think the pandemic has caused kids not to be able to get out and exercise. And I've seen in my 11-year-old in particular, he's got a little on the plumpy side as a consequence of sitting around for a hot minute. They're still able to socialize. That was my daughter's primary concern. She started high school. She's a freshman. She's concerned about socialization. It's just in another form now. But physical activity, I think, is the biggest one, and the ability to be able to socialize. But again, living trumps all that. So, and living in the ICU with a ventilator forced down your throat, that's all that. You can do that other stuff later on. Please. Thank you. Just let's survive.
So it's time for us to hit it and quit it. We're out of time on this particular episode of the Quit List. The question is, should children be back in school right now? The answer is hit it means yes, quit it means no. Dr. Anila, should kids be back in school right now?
I say quit it till we know what it does. Quit it.
Jeremiah Kamara, hit it or quit it?
I'm not sure, man. I say hit it there and quit it. It all depends.
Dr. McClendon.
Quit it. I want people to be alive so that they can go to Wakanda.
All Well, there you have it, folks. That's another episode of The Quit List. We've been joined today by our esteemed guest, Dr. Anila Rixcord. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate Jeremiah Kamara, the filmmaker and author. We appreciate Dr. Gerard McClendon, PhD, the social psychologist and college professor. You guys are amazing. We appreciate you all tuning in. Come back next week and join us for another episode right here on The Quit List.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.